Now, 2020 has undoubtedly been a roller coaster year for so many industries in this country. Moving on to one of the other subjects that we are covering this morning. It has been a roller coaster year. Think of industries like the agriculture industry. On the one hand, everybody's got to eat. Certainly, that's a given. On the other hand, COVID has complicated all sorts of matters. A less than normal supply chain, restaurants restricted or closed, and the need to keep workers safe. Now, Murad Al-Katib has been at the center of all of that, the Saskatchewan-based entrepreneur who built AGT into a global pulses powerhouse, pulses being beans, peas, lentils, and chickpeas. And he joins us now with his take on this unprecedented year. Murad, welcome back to BNN Bloomberg. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
If I had to ask you to pick one word that describes this year, what would it be?
Challenging, John, but certainly in the ag sector, we probably had a bit of a different experience. I mean, the global demand for food, was obviously very, very important. And what I saw over the course of the year is from the start of the pandemic, food, attached a strong importance for governments around the world. And from that perspective, Canada had stocks, and we were able to meet a lot of that global food demand.
What did you see in the supply chain? I think that was one of the initial stories that started to build. Borders are closing. What does that mean about moving products, and certainly in moving food? What did you see over the course of the year?
Well, I think that, we have to give credit where credit is due, and governments around the world reacted by, putting restrictions in place to deal with the pandemic. But essential commodities and the flow of food, with quite minimal disruption in terms of port operations, we saw governments, making sure that was facilitated. The tougher part, of it really for us was, the functioning of documentary collection systems with banks, everybody working from home, port operations were slower, railways were slower. It was definitely tougher to get our product to market, which of course means longer times and more working capital. So, it was a challenging environment, but certainly, very strong demand.
I mentioned, obviously, the various products that go into your business of AGT. I certainly didn't get to the end of that list because you're in a lot of different areas these days. But throughout this pandemic, we've talked a lot about, the restaurants. People certainly know about Beyond Meat burgers, and they probably know that company's selling a lot of product into grocery stores and less so to restaurants because of the pandemic. They might know less that peas that you guys are farming are making their way into products like that. What has been your take on the way by which people have been getting their food, very much so at the retail and not necessarily at the restaurant?
Well, listen, for AGT, it's been, quite interesting in that we did a initiative over the last 4 or 5 years to really get closer to global retailers. And, so the retail demand, was quite robust. If you look at staple foods like pasta, lentils, peas, chickpeas, I mean, these are shelf-stable, affordable products. And so, people were certainly taking them. And if you went to the grocery aisle in Canada, the pasta aisle was sold out. Those are the kind of things that we saw. But, we're certainly seeing, John, the lentils and peas and, the alternative plant-based protein market, booming actually right now. And, those companies that were closer to retail, if I look at, the Maple Leaf Light Life plant-based, very strong in the Canadian retail system. We've seen great, strong, robust sales in a business like that. So consumers are embracing it. It's healthy. It's getting more affordable. And, it's part of a lifestyle change that we're seeing around the world.
Let's talk about your workforce and how you've been dealing with the ups and downs of 2020, what initially you were doing with your team. Obviously, you've got a big global team at this stage, and what's happening when it comes to employment.
I mean, we're already kind of used to the hygienic, food-safe environment. So for us, it was a matter of just, strengthening our cleaning protocols, keeping our employees safe, and keeping everybody's mental state right as well. I mean, people were in a bit of a panic, not sure if they wanted to be at work. But, the grain farmers and the grain handling systems around the world are essential industries. And, we needed the food system to function, and we met the challenge.
Are you thinking about this vaccine rollout now and the way by which to ensure that your employees get that? Is that something, you require them to get it? Obviously, sometimes we have that tension of whether people want to take a vaccine or not.
Well, we're definitely hopeful that, as governments around the world called on us to operate during the pandemic as essential, that, our workforce and our company and others will receive that vaccine, as well. And we're going to do our best to educate and to, make sure that we roll out, the availability of that vaccine. And we have a lot of employees that are expressing a desire to, get back to normal. And so we're quite hopeful that 2021 is going to be one where we can kind of get back to whatever that new normal is.
You talked about the government. It's worth pointing out you're part of a group that the government put together to talk about the path ahead, talking to business leaders from private industry with the public sector. You did submit some of what you all found in talking and thinking about the road ahead to the federal government. Can you bring us up to speed on some of your conclusions?
Yeah, so the Industry Strategy Council was put in place in May, June, and we tabled our report to Minister Baines and to the Prime Minister's office, and again, the report is dealing with kind of what we would call restart and recovery, and then reimagining the sectors in our country going forward. I mean, this is a historic time of spending and a historic time where we need to understand that the industrial policy of Canada needs to be defined, and we need to keep up. And, the new digital economy, whether it be agriculture, resources of the future, the service industry, great opportunity ahead. And, there's a lot of recommendations around both physical infrastructure, digital infrastructure, skills training, and certainly, though, ensuring that those industries that have the challenge have the support that they have now, but doubling down on those sectors like agriculture that are doing well.
And before I let you go, Murad, we're sitting here talking about IPOs, some big tech companies that are going public as we end 2020. You were a big IPO story in the Canadian market. You ultimately decided that you wanted to run the business without the noise that goes with being a public company. You completed your privatization with the backing of Fairfax. Tell us how that has been going, how it's been perhaps helpful for you to be private during this pandemic.
Well, certainly, I mean, the pandemic kind of, we saw how the markets reacted and overreacted to a number of sectors. So, being private for us, John, has been, a very strong thing, in particular on our innovation platform, the whole plant-based protein. We've got global major partnerships with, some of the major consumer products companies, and we're able to kind of conduct all that innovation and research, behind a veil, and we're able to, assist those companies in launching really great consumer products. So it's been exciting for us. Fairfax has been an incredible partner. We're going to look forward to maybe getting back, into the market, sometime here in the future.
Interesting. So going public. I mean, hey, there's a big appetite for plant-based proteins right now, as you can see with some of those stock market players.
Well, and Canada, this isn't new to us. I mean, Canada, we started the plant-based revolution, and we've been driving it, for the last couple of decades. And so while the market has woken up to this is something that we live and breathe. And Western Canada and the 3-crop rotation of pulses, canola, and wheat, and the protein supercluster, that I was a part of drafting and I'm on the board of now. These are exciting things for Canada's future. And, I think that the plant-based revolution, we're just at the very beginning. This will become what I said is, today billions will become hundreds of billions, in the generations to come.
Certainly worth watching. So you're thinking about possibly coming back to the public markets in the years ahead?
I mean, we're going to continue our growth trajectory, and, we'll definitely look at the capital structure that makes sense for us. And, again, we wanted with Fairfax to make AGT a Canadian champion that was going to continue to grow, and we're well on that path to continue to do that.